There are tons of guides out there on optimal combos and advanced techniques that you need to learn to play Smash at a high level. And although these are great sources of information, there seems to be significantly less info about how you need to think to play Smash at a high level. So let's fix that. Instead of going over what to press on your controller, let's outline some fundamental things you need to be thinking about when making good decisions in Smash Bros. Stage control isn't a very complex topic, but it is something that people often neglect. To put it broadly, there are points on a stage that allow you more options than your opponent. I went over this quite a bit in my video outlining MKLeo's ledge trapping, and I suggest you watch that before this one. The most common way you will hear stage control being discussed is simply trying to obtain the center stage. When you are in the center of the stage, you are free to move in any direction you want, as well as being able to survive any moves that KO you horizontally for much longer. Compare this to someone with their back to the ledge. They essentially have to move towards the center of the stage as they have lost the ability to space retreating aerials, and because they have no space behind them, they can no longer dash back to bait out approaches. On top of this, they will die much earlier to horizontal attacks and throws because they're already positioned closer to the side blast zone, so they want to get out of this spot. You need to be able to recognize when it is essential not to give up stage control and realize what positions on the stage are most beneficial for you. You also have to realize that people will try to force their way out of bad spots like when they're at the ledge and punish them accordingly. Often at lower levels of play, you'll see players just give up a great situation because they go for an edge guard that had next to no chance of working, or they just approach someone recklessly when they're already in a good spot. Although center stage is usually the easiest example, depending on the matchup, stage control can look different. Dabuz's Rosalina is a great example of this in Smash 4 and even today. Approaching him when he was under a battlefield platform felt next to impossible, as he positioned himself in a way where the platform cuts off full hop aerial approaches, but Luma's ridiculous jab made it hard to approach her straight on. Use positions like this to frustrate your opponent and then ultimately punish them for their attempts to break the control. Your position on the stage isn't the only thing that determines how many options you have. Landing that crucial hit in neutral will also swing the tides in your favor. To put it simply, when you have more options than your opponent, you are in an advantageous spot. This can be caused by stage control, but most often you'll see it when someone simply lands a good hit. When you see players like Mars or Light get any stray hit, they make their opponent work to be able to reset to neutral. You must realize that when your opponent is recovering from hit stun, they do not have the same options as you anymore. You are free to do anything while they must try to regain their footing. Watch how calculated some of the pros are when punishing players who are in a disadvantageous spot, as well as watch what they do to get out of these spots themselves. If you compare this to lower level players, you'll notice that some players do not push their advantage well and they allow their opponent to reset to neutral for free. Or even worse, they will hard commit with an option that will only cover one specific thing, which then allows their opponent to get back into control with minimal effort. You'll also notice that lower level players constantly pick the same option when they are in disadvantage. Maybe they always spam Nair to put a hitbox out, maybe they always try to air dodge at a certain timing, or they always tech in when they're put in a tech situation. You must be diligent in mixing up how you get out of disadvantage as well as punishing your opponent when you have the advantage. I won't go too far into this because it's just a key example of the previous concepts. Being above someone is one of the worst spots to be in because there is gravity in this game. The player in the air is forced down to the ground and only has limited options. The player on the stage has every option available. You must get consistent in punishing people who are trying to land. Keep track of every resource they've exhausted, such as their jump or air dodge, and realize that they have to find a way down to the ground. The game is literally forcing them to do so with gravity. So it's up to you to figure out how to make this as hard as possible for them using the kit of your character. This is less so fundamental, but it is something that any new player needs to know about. When you air dodge in any Smash game, especially directional air dodges in Ultimate, your character must go through a recovery phase. As someone trying to punish an opponent who is trying to land, realize that if you overcommit, you will likely lose your advantage if they air dodge during your commitment. Your character likely has moves that recover quickly, so you can react to their air dodge and then punish accordingly instead of letting them get by you for free. Gauging risk reward is hard, but it's something you must get good at. Let's take a look at this dash attack. Young Link shields it and punishes Cloud for about, 25%, I didn't really check, but if it hits, Cloud gets a kill. That's a pretty good trade-off, right? Cloud hits him, gets a kill, if it misses, it doesn't. That's not to say that you should just swing your dash attack in this situation, but it isn't too risky with a great reward. Now we turn the tables and Cloud's at high percent. If it hits, he simply gets stage control and 15%. Not a bad reward, but it's not great. If it's shielded, he dies. a very, very risky play. So in the same matchup, the same moves used, the risk reward changes dramatically depending on the percentage. It is hard to gauge risk reward, but the most common way to play the game is low risk, high reward. Obviously this is not always possible, but you do want to keep the risk low. Playing with a low-risk playstyle doesn't mean you're just trying to avoid death. Think about characters with great combo games. Even though Pikachu will die to a dash attack here, it's still kind of silly to do it because Pikachu has such a good combo game, you're going to give him an even bigger lead for just kind of YOLOing a dash attack. Instead, you want to use the safe moves your character has like Cloud's backer or get an actual read for when a dash attack will hit instead of just guessing. And that was like a shitty combo too, right? Like Esam would have got way more percent, maybe even kills the Cloud because Cloud's easy to gimp. So make sure you figure out which moves your character has that are low commitment and which ones you can use at the high percentages to actually get the kills. In this clip, Meister is just whiffing smash attacks and Nairo just doesn't care. He's running away from him and only throwing out very safe hits. Why is that when Nairo is such an aggressive player? Well, when you get a stock lead in this game, you have to realize that your mentality needs to shift. You're no longer trying to hit your opponent, you are trying not to get hit and taking whatever is free. Way too often you'll see a player do pretty good against a pro, but then all of a sudden they just threw their lead for no reason. Most of the time it's because they weren't playing with an advantage. They're kind of playing the game the same way the entire time. When you have the stock advantage, even if you don't want to time someone out, you have to realize that you will win the game if you have an advantage, so it's up to your opponent to come to you. You need to change the way you play the game when you're winning. Watch how Leo plays in this position, how Tweak plays. They're going to begin to use very non-committal moves and just get as much free percent as they can because they're already winning. There's no point in taking high risks that just let your opponent come back, especially if you're at a high percent. That's pretty much the gist of it. Just make sure your plan in a game is dynamic. You're not always doing the same thing. Depending on the situation, you're changing it up. So when you are winning, do not give your opponent anything for free. If they're going to make a comeback, make sure they earn it and just play safe and get all the damage you can before they finally close out that stock. That's pretty much it for now. There's way more to be said about all these aspects of the game and there's way more concepts to actually talk about. But I want to keep this video short. I'll be making videos in the future in which I analyze pro players and dissect the reasons they make some of the decisions in order to help people get a better understanding of how to make good decisions in a game of Smash Bros. This video is simply a primer to help newer players get accustomed to some of the fundamental concepts of the game that they may be unaware of. So if you want to see how some of the best players in the world apply concepts like these, and you want to try to get a better understanding of how to make better decisions in your own games of Smash, stick around and be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.